We are low-key living in the loneliest era of human history, but the second someone tries to actually get close to us, we instantly hit them with the brick wall and vanish like a ghost. It is absolute clown behavior, no cap. Psychologists call this the intimacy paradox, and it is actively rotting our brains. On one hand, your brain is literally hardwired to crave deep, meaningful connection because isolation feels like actual physical pain. But on the other hand, the thought of being truly perceived and judged by another human makes you want to fake your own death. So you just stay in your room scrolling until your eyes bleed, wondering why you feel so empty. We live in an era where we are technically more connected than any humans to ever exist. You can look into the daily lives of thousands of strangers, but that creates a terrifying side effect: hypervisibility. Every text you send, every story you post, feels like a public performance where you might get completely canceled by your peers. So, what do? We substitute real, risky connection with low-stakes digital proximity. It is way safer to leave someone on read for 3 business days than it is to grab a coffee and risk an awkward silence. Behind the glass screen, you are the absolute main character who controls the entire narrative. This brings us to the absolute trenches of modern dating. The endless, looping talking stage. You talk for months, exchange basic life lore, and send meaningless memes back and forth. But the moment things start getting real, one of you panics, gets the sudden ick over literally nothing, and completely vanishes from the face of the earth. Because let's be real, true intimacy requires vulnerability, which is high-key terrifying. To let someone truly know you means giving them the exact blueprint on how to break your heart. So your brain decides that being lonely and detached is a million times safer than risking the emotional damage of rejection. We've essentially commodified human connection through the absolute brain rot of endless swiping. When you treat people like a digital menu, you develop the subconscious belief that a better option is always just one swipe away. So the second your current connection shows a single human flaw or minor inconvenience, you think, yeah, they're cooked, next. This makes everyone feel entirely disposable, which naturally causes everyone to keep their guards up at all times. You can't build a real bond when both people are treating the relationship like a temporary trial subscription they plan to cancel. We are protecting ourselves from the very thing we are desperately downloading apps to find. To survive this disposable era, our generation has absolutely romanticized the concept of extreme hyper-independence. We tell ourselves, I don't need anyone. I can literally handle everything by myself, treating self-reliance like the ultimate flex. We mistake emotional isolation for absolute strength, thinking that needing someone else is a sign of weakness. But the absolute plot twist is that the fortress you build to keep out the pain is the exact same fortress that traps you inside with your loneliness. You become entirely untouchable, sure, but you also become completely unlovable because nobody can scale those walls. You end up perfectly safe, but absolutely miserable, realizing your defense mechanism completely cooked you. Another massive barrier we've built is the absolute obsession with avoiding anything deemed cringe. We have weaponized irony to the point where showing that you actually care about someone or something makes you look weak. So we wrap our real emotions in layers of jokes, sarcasm, and detached apathy just to protect our egos from being laughed at. But when everyone is playing a character who doesn't care, it becomes literally impossible to form an authentic bond. You can't experience real intimacy while refusing to step out from behind your shield of irony. By constantly pretending everything is a joke, you accidentally turn your entire social life into an empty punchline. This whole dynamic perfectly mirrors what psychologists call a dismissive avoidant attachment style. The second a relationship transitions from the fun, casual stage into actual emotional depth, your internal alarm system goes completely off. Your brain flags the closeness as a literal threat to your freedom, convincing you that you need to eject immediately before you get hurt. So you start actively self-sabotaging by hyper-focusing on the absolute dumbest flaws to justify leaving. You tell yourself, wow, they chew their food slightly too loud, they are definitely not the one, when in reality, you're just terrified. You construct an impossible standard of a perfect partner, just to ensure nobody ever gets close enough to see the real you. We also have to talk about how the algorithm has completely fried our perception of what a normal relationship even looks like. You scroll through endless curated feeds of heavily edited, perfectly aesthetic couples who never seem to have a single argument. Subconsciously, you start comparing your raw, messy, real-life interactions to someone else's highly produced highlight reel. Real relationships are slow, sometimes boring, and require actual, unglamorous emotional work to maintain. But because your brain is addicted to the instant gratification of digital validation, normal pacing feels like a total drag. If a connection doesn't give you an immediate cinematic spark of dopamine within the first 10 minutes, you mistake it for a lack of compatibility. Another classic move in the avoidant playbook is obsessing over the phantom ex, or the one that got away. When you're faced with a real flawed human in the present, your brain suddenly starts romanticizing a past relationship that didn't even work out. You convince yourself that no one else can ever measure up to that one perfect person from 3 years ago, effectively locking down your heart. But here is the absolute truth. Longing for someone you cannot have is actually a very safe way to love. It lets you feel the rush of deep, intense emotions without ever having to face the actual vulnerability or responsibility of a real relationship. You aren't actually mourning that person. You are just using their ghost as a human shield to keep everyone else out. Deep down, the root of all this avoidance is the absolute horror of simply being perceived by another human being. When you let someone get genuinely close, they start seeing past your curated aesthetic, your funny tweets, and your perfect outfits. They see your weird insecurities, your awkward habits, and the unedited version of you that you high-key try to ignore. Our generation has developed this subconscious belief that if we aren't entirely healed, perfectly aesthetic, and financially set, we are completely unlovable. So the second someone starts noticing a single crack in your armor, you panic and pull the eject button on the whole relationship. You would literally rather reject them first and stay completely isolated than risk them seeing you as imperfect. This extreme terror of vulnerability is exactly how our generation invented the absolute purgatory known as the situationship. It is the ultimate compromise for the avoidant mind. You get all the boyfriend or girlfriend perks without ever having to sign the dotted line of commitment. You walk this stressful emotional tightrope for months, constantly pretending you don't care about labels just to avoid looking too attached. But trying to get intimacy from a situationship is like trying to hydrate yourself with a single drop of water. It leaves you completely exhausted because you are investing real emotional energy into someone who has a foot out the door. You end up getting the exact heartbreak you were trying to avoid, but without any of the security or beautiful memories of a real relationship. So how do we actually escape this absolute matrix of emotional detachment and lonely scrolling? First, you have to realize that avoiding connection isn't actually a flex or a sign of being healed. It's just a fear response. True emotional maturity isn't about being completely untouchable. It's about being brave enough to let someone see your messy parts. Yes, opening up to another human being means you might get completely clutched or absolutely cooked in the end. There is no absolute guarantee of safety in a real relationship, and that is high-key the point. But staying completely isolated just to avoid pain is like refusing to live just to avoid dying. You have to stop waiting for a perfect, risk-free scenario to magically fall into your lap, because that era is never coming. Real intimacy is built in the trenches of awkward conversations, showing up on your bad days and actively choosing each other. It means choosing to delete the apps, stopping the endless swiping loop, and giving one real person a genuine chance to see the true you. Stop letting your fears ghost the people who actually want to know you, no cap. If this video low-key attacked you or read your mind, hit that subscribe button right now so we can keep curing our collective brain rot. Drop a comment below sharing your worst situationship lore, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.